Trump stops his motorcade for a homeless boy. What he learns shocks the world. If you're enjoying these stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing content. The sun was relentless that afternoon, casting its golden glare over the crowded streets of Belmont City. A long line of black SUVs moved through the chaos, their sleek, tinted windows hiding their mysterious passenger from prying eyes. People paused on sidewalks, pointing and murmuring as the convoy cruised by. It was a scene of power, precision, and mystery, until it wasn't. Inside the lead SUV, William Grant, former president turned global humanitarian, leaned back in his seat. He had spent the morning at a leadership summit, tackling issues that most people only hear about in headlines. But as the motorcade slowed near a bustling intersection, something outside the window caught his eye. A boy, no older than 10, stood on the street corner, clutching a battered cardboard sign that read, "Please stop, I need help." He wore an oversized hoodie stained with dirt and sneakers barely held together by frayed laces. His brown hair was messy, his face streaked with dirt, but his eyes, those eyes were filled with something Grant couldn't ignore: determination. "What's going on with that kid?" Grant muttered, his brow furrowing. "Probably just a beggar, sir," one of his aides replied dismissively, barely glancing up from his tablet. But Grant wasn't convinced. He leaned forward, squinting at the boy as they passed. Something gnawed at him, a gut feeling he couldn't shake. "Stop the motorcade," Grant ordered, his voice cutting through the air like a command from a general. The aide blinked, stunned. "Sir, are you sure? I said stop!" The screech of brakes echoed through the street, followed by a chain reaction as the vehicles behind the lead SUV came to a halt. The sudden commotion startled pedestrians, who began gathering to see what was happening. Secret Service agents sprang into action, their sharp gazes scanning the crowd for threats. Ignoring their cautious murmurs, Grant opened the door and stepped out, his presence commanding immediate attention. People gasped and whispered in disbelief. Was that William Grant? The boy froze, clutching his sign tightly. His eyes widened as the towering figure of the former president approached him. "What's your name, son?" Grant asked, his voice firm yet strangely comforting. "Tyler," the boy answered hesitantly, his small hands gripping the cardboard as if it were a shield. "What are you doing out here, Tyler?" Grant crouched slightly, meeting the boy's gaze. For a moment, Tyler hesitated. Then, summoning all the courage his little body could muster, he said, "I've been waiting here for hours. I wrote this letter for you, Mr. Grant." "A letter?" Grant raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Well, you've got my attention. Let me see it." One of the agents stepped forward, reaching for the envelope Tyler held, but Grant waved him off. "No, I'll take it." He extended his hand, making himself level with Tyler. Slowly, the boy handed over the crumpled envelope, his fingers trembling. As Grant unfolded the paper, the words scrawled in uneven handwriting struck him like a punch to the gut. William Grant straightened as he read the letter, his expression shifting from curiosity to something far deeper, shock mixed with sorrow. The words, written in shaky, childlike handwriting, carried a weight far beyond the boy's years. "Dear Mr. Grant, my dad was a soldier. He fought for this country but got hurt and couldn't work when he came home. We lost everything. Now it's just me and my mom, and we don't have a house anymore. I'm asking for your help because my dad always said you care about people like us. Please don't let us be forgotten." Grant let the letter fall to his side for a moment, his jaw tightening as he looked at the boy. Tyler shifted nervously, his oversized hoodie slipping off one shoulder. "Where's your mom, Tyler?" Grant asked, his voice quiet but heavy with concern. "She's at the shelter," Tyler replied, glancing down. "She's not feeling good." Grant nodded solemnly. "And your dad?" Tyler hesitated, his small hands fidgeting with the hem of his hoodie. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "He passed away 2 months ago." The weight of those words hit Grant like a freight train. He looked at Tyler, not just a boy holding a sign, but a child carrying the world on his small shoulders. "You've done a brave thing today, Tyler," Grant said, crouching again to meet the boy's eyes. "Let's go see your mom." As Grant gestured for Tyler to follow, the gathered crowd erupted into whispers and gasps. Phones emerged from pockets, capturing the surreal scene. The former President of the United States, the man whose name was synonymous with power and diplomacy, was now guiding a homeless boy to his SUV. Tyler hesitated, glancing nervously at the black-suited Secret Service agents who flanked Grant like sentinels. Sensing the boy's unease, Grant placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, Tyler," he said. "You're safe with me." Grant helped Tyler climb into the vehicle, his towering figure somehow exuding both authority and warmth. The agents moved swiftly to secure the area, radios crackling as the motorcade prepared to move again. As they drove through the city streets, Grant leaned toward Tyler, his voice low and steady. "Tell me more about your dad," he said. Tyler's eyes brightened slightly despite the sadness in his tone. "He was a hero," the boy said with pride. "When his unit was attacked overseas, he saved everyone. He even got a medal for it. But when he came home, things got bad. He said the government forgot about him." Grant listened intently, his fingers tightening into a fist on his lap. It wasn't just Tyler's story. It was the story of countless others who had served their country only to be left behind. The SUV came to a halt outside a modest shelter tucked between gray buildings. Tyler's face lit up with recognition, and he pointed toward the entrance. "That's where my mom is." Grant nodded, a newfound determination burning in his eyes. "Let's make sure she's okay." As the motorcade pulled up to the shelter, William Grant stepped out of the SUV with Tyler at his side. The modest building looked worn but functional, its peeling paint a testament to years of being a last resort for those with nowhere else to turn. A small crowd had already gathered outside, their murmurs swelling as they realized who had just arrived. "Is that really him?" someone whispered, their phone already pointed at the scene. Grant's focus remained on Tyler, who was clutching his cardboard sign like a lifeline. With a firm but kind gesture, Grant guided the boy toward the shelter's entrance. The director, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and an air of exhaustion, met them at the door. Her gaze flicked between Grant and Tyler, her face a mix of awe and confusion. "Mr. Grant," she said, stumbling over her words, "this is unexpected." "Where's Tyler's mom?" Grant asked, cutting straight to the point. The director quickly regained her composure. "She's in the back, resting. She's been unwell lately." "Take me to her," Grant said, his tone leaving no room for debate. The director led the way through the shelter's narrow hallways, the smell of disinfectant mingling with the faint scent of canned soup. Tyler clung to Grant's side as they entered a small room where his mother lay on a cot, her face pale and drawn. At the sight of her son, she struggled to sit up, her lips parting in surprise. "Tyler?" she said weakly, her voice cracking. "Mom!" Tyler ran to her side, wrapping his small arms around her. William Grant stepped forward, extending his hand. "Mrs. Harper, I'm William Grant. Your son made sure your family's story reached me." Tears welled in her eyes as she shook his hand, too overwhelmed to speak. Tyler stayed close to her, glancing up at Grant with a mixture of gratitude and newfound hope. Grant turned to one of his aides, his voice sharp and commanding. "I want a full report on their situation by the end of the day. Medical care, housing, everything. We're going to fix this." The aide nodded, already tapping notes into a tablet. Meanwhile, the shelter residents began gathering near the doorway, their whispers growing louder. Someone pulled out a phone, the camera capturing Grant kneeling beside the Harpers. "You've been through a lot," Grant said softly, looking from Tyler to his mother. "But this is just the beginning. We're going to make sure no one forgets your story." The moment was raw, unfiltered, and powerful. As the video spread across social media, it quickly went viral. Millions watched as one of the world's most recognized figures leaned down to help a struggling family, his genuine concern evident in every word. But while the internet buzzed with hashtags and headlines, Grant was already moving forward. That evening, he convened an emergency meeting with his top advisors, veterans advocates, and leaders from major charities. The room hummed with tension as Grant entered, a copy of Tyler's letter in his hand. He placed it on the table and looked around, his expression steely. "This letter," he began, tapping the paper with his finger, "represents countless families who've been failed by the system, veterans who served their country and came home to nothing. That ends now. His advisors exchanged glances, the gravity of his words settling over them like a storm cloud. "We're launching a national initiative," Grant continued, his voice unwavering. "An emergency relief fund for veterans and their families. No red tape, no delays. Fast, efficient, and impactful." One advisor hesitated. "Mr. Grant, funding something on this scale—" "Spare me the excuses," Grant interrupted, his tone cutting. "I'll start by contributing $10 million myself. Now find me matching contributions. If a boy like Tyler can stand on a street corner fighting for his family, we can damn well do our part." The room erupted into action, phones buzzing as plans were set into motion. Within hours, the Veterans Family Rescue Fund was announced to the public, with Grant leading the charge. In a press conference later that night, he spoke with conviction. "This isn't just about money. It's about hope, dignity, and doing what's right. Tyler's father gave everything for this country. It's time we give back." As news of the fund spread, donations poured in from every corner of the country. Grant's words weren't just a promise, they were a rallying cry. Weeks after launching the Veterans Family Rescue Fund, William Grant hosted an exclusive gala at his private estate, a night dedicated to honoring the sacrifices of veterans and their families. The buzz leading up to the event was palpable. News outlets speculated about what Grant might reveal, while social media was flooded with support for the initiative. But for Grant, this wasn't just another high-profile gathering. It was a chance to tell Tyler's story and remind the world of what truly mattered. The grand ballroom of the estate was transformed into a shimmering tribute to service and resilience. Military memorabilia adorned the walls, and photographs of veterans, including Tyler's late father, were displayed prominently. A string quartet played softly as distinguished guests arrived, from military leaders to celebrities and philanthropists. At the edge of the room, Tyler Harper stood awkwardly, in a crisp navy suit. His hair had been neatly combed, but he kept tugging at the tie around his neck, clearly uncomfortable. His mother, dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, rested a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You look great," she whispered, her voice full of pride. "I feel weird," Tyler muttered, his eyes darting nervously across the sea of glamorous attendees. From across the room, Grant caught sight of Tyler and made his way over. His towering figure and confident stride commanded attention, but his smile was warm. "Tyler, you clean up pretty good," Grant joked, crouching slightly to meet the boy's eyes. Tyler smiled shyly. "I don't really like suits." "Well, just for tonight, you're the star of the show," Grant said, giving him a gentle pat on the shoulder. "Think you can handle it?" Tyler hesitated but nodded. As the evening progressed, Grant took the stage to thunderous applause. Standing beneath a large American flag, he began his speech with a blend of gratitude and challenge. "We are here tonight not just to honor our veterans, but to ensure their sacrifices are never forgotten," he said, his voice resonating through the room. "Every veteran has a story, and every family deserves a future." Tyler Harper's story reminds us that even the smallest voice can make the biggest difference. He didn't wait for help, he demanded it, and now it's our turn to act. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing off the ornate walls. Grant paused, then turned toward Tyler, who stood frozen at the side of the room. "Tyler, come up here," Grant said, beckoning him with a wave. The boy's eyes widened in panic, and he glanced nervously at his mother. She gave him a gentle nudge. "Go on, sweetheart, you can do this." With hesitant steps, Tyler crossed the room, his small frame dwarfed by the grandeur of the stage. When he reached Grant, the former president placed a hand on his shoulder and smiled. "This young man," Grant began, his voice full of emotion, "taught us all a lesson in courage. He didn't give up on his family, and he didn't give up on this country. Tyler, you've inspired me, and I know you've inspired everyone here tonight." The crowd rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Tyler's face flushed with pride, and for a moment the weight of his family's struggles seemed to lift. But Grant wasn't done. He gestured to a covered easel beside him and signaled for an aide to remove the cloth. Beneath it was a framed certificate. "Tonight," Grant announced, "I'm proud to unveil the Harper Scholarship Fund, created in honor of Tyler's late father, Sergeant Benjamin Harper." This fund will ensure that children of veterans have access to the education and opportunities they deserve." The applause was deafening as Tyler's eyes filled with tears. He turned to his mother, who was already wiping her own eyes, and then back to Grant. This is for your dad, Tyler," Grant said, his voice thick with emotion. "And for every hero who gave everything for this nation. You've reminded us all of what true bravery looks like." The rest of the night was filled with celebration, but the Harper family couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. Tyler, who had once stood on a street corner holding a cardboard sign, was now standing in a room full of powerful people, all of them inspired by his courage. As the gala drew to a close, Grant knelt beside Tyler and whispered, "You're not just changing your family's future, kid. You're inspiring a nation." The morning after the gala, William Grant sat at his desk, reviewing updates on the Veterans Family Rescue Fund. Reports of families receiving emergency aid and veterans being reconnected with resources poured in. But one file in particular caught his eye. His chief advisor, Eric Blake, entered the room, holding a folder with a grave expression. "Mr. Grant," Eric began, placing the folder on the desk, "you need to see this." Grant opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. At first, the contents seemed unremarkable, a standard military report. But as he read further, his brow furrowed. The file detailed a mission in the Middle East, one led by none other than Tyler's father, Sergeant Benjamin Harper. The report described a harrowing attack on Sergeant Harper's unit. Under heavy fire, he had orchestrated an escape that saved the lives of his entire team. But that wasn't all. Harper had uncovered crucial intelligence during the mission, a plot to launch a large-scale attack on American soil. His actions thwarted the attack, potentially saving thousands of lives. Grant leaned back in his chair, the weight of the revelation settling over him. "Why hasn't this been made public?" he asked, his voice sharp. Eric hesitated. "It was buried in classified archives to protect operational security at the time, but with the attention on Tyler's family, the report was flagged and brought to light." Grant's jaw tightened. Sergeant Harper wasn't just a hero, he was a national treasure, and his story has been forgotten. He stood abruptly, pacing the room. "This can't stay buried, Eric. The world needs to know." Within hours, Grant arranged a press conference, inviting Tyler and his mother Sarah to join him. When the day arrived, the room was packed with journalists, cameras from every major network trained on the stage. The air buzzed with anticipation as Grant stepped forward, holding the declassified report in his hand. "Today," he began, his voice steady and resolute, "we honor not just a family, but a man whose bravery changed the course of history. Sergeant Benjamin Harper wasn't just a father or a soldier, he was one of America's greatest heroes." He turned to face Sarah and Tyler, who sat in the front row. "Your husband, your father," Grant said, his voice softening, "gave everything for this country. His courage saved countless lives, and it's time the world knows his name." Grant then recounted the details of Sergeant Harper's mission, his voice steady but laced with emotion. The room fell silent as the gravity of the story sank in. To Tyler, it was like discovering a part of his father he had never known, a piece of him that had been lost in the shadows. Tears streamed down Sarah's face, her hands clutching Tyler's tightly. The boy's chest swelled with pride, his wide eyes glistening as he absorbed the magnitude of his father's sacrifice. As Grant concluded, the audience erupted into applause, but he wasn't done yet. "In honor of Sergeant Harper's extraordinary courage," Grant announced, "we are establishing the Harper Medal of Valor, a national award to recognize unsung heroes who have demonstrated extraordinary bravery and sacrifice. The first medal will be posthumously awarded to Sergeant Harper, and his family will accept it on his behalf." When Grant called Tyler to the stage, the boy hesitated, his hands trembling. Sarah leaned down and whispered, "Your dad would be so proud of you." With her encouragement, Tyler stood and walked onto the stage, his small frame dwarfed by the spotlight. Grant knelt beside him, handing him the medal. Tyler clutched the medal tightly, his voice trembling as he addressed the crowd. "My dad always told me that being brave means standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. He stood up for his country. And now, because of all of you, his story won't be forgotten. Thank you for making his dream come true." The room rose in a standing ovation as Tyler's words echoed in their hearts. Social media exploded with clips of the emotional moment, touching millions around the globe. Tyler's father's story had become more than a tribute. It was a beacon, inspiring others to recognize the sacrifices of unsung heroes and to fight for those who had been left behind. In the weeks following the press conference, Tyler Harper's story spread like wildfire across the nation. News channels replayed the emotional footage of him clutching the Harper Medal of Valor, his voice trembling as he honored his father's legacy. Social media was flooded with posts about the bravery of Sergeant Benjamin Harper and the courage of his young son. What had started as a chance encounter on a busy street corner now had the entire country talking. People from all walks of life were moved by Tyler's resilience, and his father's sacrifice resonated deeply with families who had experienced similar struggles. Soon, a hashtag emerged, #HarperHeroes. The movement wasn't just about Tyler anymore. Veterans and their families began sharing their stories, posting photos and heartfelt messages about loved ones who had served. The Harper family's plight had become a rallying cry, shining a spotlight on the systemic challenges faced by military families across the country. For Tyler, life had changed almost overnight. He and his mother moved into a new home provided by donations from supporters inspired by their story. The house, furnished and filled with thoughtful gifts from strangers, was a stark contrast to the crowded shelter they had left behind. But the attention wasn't always easy to handle. Tyler returned to school, where he was greeted like a celebrity. His classmates peppered him with questions. What was it like meeting William Grant? Is it true your dad was a hero? Some even asked for autographs. At first, Tyler felt overwhelmed by the sudden fame, but with time, he grew to embrace his role. "I just want people to know about my dad," he told a reporter during an interview. "He was brave, and he believed in helping others. If sharing our story helps other families like ours, then I'm glad." Meanwhile, William Grant continued to champion the cause. His Veterans Family Rescue Fund had already raised millions, but he wasn't satisfied. He used every platform available to him, press conferences, public events, and private meetings with lawmakers to push for systemic change. "This isn't just about one family," Grant said during an emotional speech at a charity event. "It's about thousands of families. Every veteran has a story, and every family deserves support." Tyler's courage reminded us of that, and it's our responsibility to act. Donations to the fund continued pouring in, and new initiatives were launched under its banner, including job placement programs for military spouses, mental health support for veterans, and emergency housing assistance. Back at home, Tyler found small ways to honor his father. He set up a corner of his bedroom with his dad's photos, medals, and the folded flag they had received at the funeral. Sometimes he would sit there quietly, running his fingers over the edges of the Harper Medal of Valor, feeling closer to the man who had inspired so much change. One evening, as Tyler and his mother sat in their new living room, watching a news segment about the impact of the Harper movement, Sarah turned to her son. "Do you realize how much you've accomplished, Tyler?" she asked, her voice filled with pride. "You've changed our lives, and so many others' lives too." Tyler shrugged shyly, but his face glowed with quiet satisfaction. "I just wanted people to remember Dad." Sarah smiled, pulling him into a hug, "And now no one will ever forget him." For the first time in months, life for the Harpers felt stable. Tyler and his mother, Sarah, had moved into a cozy house donated by supporters of the Veterans Family Rescue Fund. The neighborhood was quiet, a world away from the chaos and uncertainty they had known. The house was more than just a roof over their heads. It was a symbol of hope, a fresh start born from Tyler's bravery and his father's legacy. Sarah often found herself marveling at how far they had come. She worked part-time at a nonprofit supporting military families, a job that gave her a renewed sense of purpose. Tyler, meanwhile, had become something of a local celebrity. His classmates treated him like a hero, and his teachers praised him for his newfound confidence. But Tyler wasn't one to bask in the attention. For him, the most important thing was ensuring his father's memory was honored. One sunny afternoon, as Tyler and Sarah were finishing lunch, the phone rang. It was William Grant. "Tyler," Grant said warmly, "I wanted to invite you and your mom to a special ceremony in Washington, D.C. We're dedicating a new memorial to honor your father and other unsung heroes who've served this country." Tyler's eyes widened. "A memorial? For Dad?" Grant chuckled. "Not just for your dad, Tyler. For every hero who gave everything for this nation. But your dad's story inspired it all." The following week, the Harpers traveled to the Capitol, their trip fully arranged by the Veterans Family Rescue Fund. As they approached the unveiling site, Tyler couldn't believe his eyes. The memorial, nestled in the heart of a sprawling park, featured a towering bronze statue of a soldier kneeling beside a child. The soldier's hand rested protectively on the child's shoulder, symbolizing sacrifice and the enduring legacy of service. Hundreds of people had gathered for the event, including veterans, military families, lawmakers, and philanthropists. Media crews buzzed around, capturing every moment. As the ceremony began, William Grant took the stage, his voice resonating with conviction. "Today," he said, gesturing to the memorial, "we honor the courage and sacrifices of our nation's unsung heroes, those who gave everything for the freedoms we hold dear. This statue is not just a tribute to their bravery, but a reminder to all of us to carry their legacy forward." He turned toward Tyler and Sarah, his expression softening. "And none of this would have happened without the courage of a young boy who refused to let his father's story be forgotten." The crowd erupted in applause as Grant invited Tyler to join him on stage. The boy, dressed in a suit that still felt slightly too big, hesitated at first. But with Sarah's encouraging nod, he stepped forward. Standing beside the towering figure of Grant, Tyler looked out at the crowd. His small hands clutched the microphone as he took a deep breath. "My dad always said being a hero means helping others, even when it's hard," he began, his voice steady but emotional. "He gave his life to protect his country. And now, because of all of you, he'll always be remembered. Thank you for making his dream and mine come true." As Tyler stepped back, the crowd rose to their feet, their applause thundering through the park. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she watched her son stand where his father would have been so proud to see him. After the ceremony, Grant knelt beside Tyler, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've done something incredible, kid. Your dad would be proud of you, and so am I." Tyler looked up, his eyes shimmering with determination. "He always said I should follow in his footsteps. One day I'll make him even prouder." The ceremony marked not just the unveiling of a memorial, but the beginning of a movement. People across the nation were inspired to recognize and honor the sacrifices of veterans and their families. The Harper story, once just a boy with a sign on a street corner, had grown into a beacon of hope that touched millions. In the weeks following the ceremony, the Harper Medal of Valor became a household name. News outlets and social media celebrated the award as a groundbreaking symbol of gratitude for unsung heroes. Veterans' families across the country shared their stories of sacrifice and resilience, inspired by Tyler's courage. Tyler, now a figure of hope for so many, found himself balancing school with speaking engagements. At first he was shy in front of cameras, but with every interview, his confidence grew. "My dad always said that heroes don't look for recognition," he told one reporter. "They just do what's right. I'm trying to do the same thing for families like mine." Meanwhile, William Grant doubled down on his commitment to veterans and their families. The Veterans Family Rescue Fund exploded in popularity, raising tens of millions of dollars in donations. Grant personally oversaw the distribution of aid, ensuring that families received housing, health care, and job placement assistance without unnecessary bureaucracy. But Grant wasn't satisfied with just helping individual families. He knew systemic change was needed. Behind the scenes, he pushed lawmakers to pass legislation ensuring better health care and financial support for veterans and their loved ones. At a fiery congressional hearing, Grant delivered a powerful statement. "Sergeant Harper's story shouldn't be the exception that captures our attention. It's a reminder of how many heroes have been forgotten. We owe them more than platitudes. We owe them action." If Tyler Harper, a 10-year-old boy, could stand on a street corner and demand help for his family, then every single one of us can do something to ensure no veteran is left behind. The hearing ended with bipartisan applause, and shortly after, the Veterans Dignity Act was signed into law. The act expanded resources for veterans and their families, ensuring that no one who served their country would face the same struggles as Tyler and his mother. Back in Belmont City, Tyler and Sarah settled into a new rhythm. Their home became a gathering place for veterans and advocates, a hub for storytelling and healing. Tyler created a small corner in the living room where he displayed the Harper Medal of Valor, his father's photos, and the folded American flag from the funeral. It became a sacred space, a daily reminder of the legacy they were building together. One crisp autumn morning, Tyler received an invitation to speak at the annual Heroes Summit, a prestigious event attended by world leaders and change-makers. The keynote speaker, William Grant himself. When Tyler took the stage, the room fell silent. Dressed in a simple suit, he clutched the microphone tightly, scanning the sea of faces before him. "My dad wasn't just my hero," he began, his voice steady. "He was a hero for this country. He taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep going no matter what. He gave everything so that we could have a better future. And now, I want to make sure no one ever forgets what people like him have done for us." The crowd rose to their feet, applause thundering through the hall. Among the attendees, Grant watched with pride as Tyler stood tall, his father's legacy alive in every word he spoke. But the night wasn't over. Grant stepped forward, taking the microphone. "Tonight," he announced, "I have one more surprise. Tyler Harper has reminded us all of what true courage looks like, and to honor his bravery and his father's legacy, I'm proud to announce the establishment of the Harper Institute for Veterans and Families. This institute will provide scholarships, counseling, and resources for every veteran's family in need, ensuring their sacrifices are never forgotten." The announcement sent the room into an uproar, cheers and applause echoing like a victory bell. Tyler's face lit up with a mix of pride and disbelief as he turned to his mother, who had tears streaming down her face. As the event came to a close, Grant knelt beside Tyler, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You've changed more lives than you'll ever know, Tyler. Your dad would be proud of the man you're becoming." Tyler looked up, his eyes bright with determination. "I just want to make sure his story keeps helping people." That's what he would have wanted. Months later, the Harper Institute opened its doors, welcoming families from across the country. The movement that started with a boy's letter had grown into a nationwide force for change. And while the world hailed Tyler as a symbol of hope and resilience, he remained humble. To him, it wasn't about being a hero, it was about honoring the one who inspired him. What would you do to honor a loved one's legacy? Tyler Harper's story proves that even the smallest actions can spark the biggest changes. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story to inspire others. Because sometimes, all it takes is one voice to change the world.